Well, welcome in. My name is Erin Youngblood, and I'm going to be talking to you about TPT School Access today. I'm excited to have you here. We are going to keep things pretty, hopefully efficient today. I know that I am in between you and your weekend likely, so I want to make sure to get in, get some details shared with you, and then get out. But we are going to go over what TPT School Access is. We'll talk about your specific subscription details. I'll also spend some time in a demo, just showing you how the product works. And I'm also here to answer any questions that you might have. It looks like my chat weirdly is not popping up. So if you do have a question, please just hop off of mute at any time and you can ask me. Again, the chat feature, it looks like for me is not working. So if you type in there, I might not see it. So please feel free to hop off of mute to ask me any questions. So first things first, I want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity to get logged into TPT School Access. If you have not yet gotten logged in, you should have received an email invitation from this email right here, info@tptscholaccess.com. That email does sometimes, and in fact, oftentimes get filtered to spam. So if you have not located that email yet, or you haven't seen it, I would check your spam folder to see if it's hanging out there. And then you can, once you have located that email, whether it's in your inbox or in your spam folder, then you can click on the activate your account button and then create a password from that page. Last thing that's important to note about accessing your school subscription account is our website, which is right here in green. And our website is www.tptscholaccess.com. That website is actually separate from the marketplace. Excuse me. So I always like to point it out. If you are somebody who's familiar with the marketplace or has used Teachers Pay Teachers, just know that your school account is separate. So they're two separate websites. I recommend bookmarking both. I think it makes it easier that way. So TPT School Access is your school-wide subscription. It's brought to you here. Brought to you all by us here at Teachers Pay Teachers. And if you're not familiar with Teachers Pay Teachers, we are an online marketplace that started about 15 years ago where teachers can go to buy and sell resources for their classrooms. Our goal here is for teachers to tap into the collective wisdom of other teachers across the United States and in some cases the world. And we are used by 85% of teachers in the United States, which is a really staggering statistic. As we grew over the years, we came to find that in some cases, teachers were using large sums of their own personal money in order to access these resources, and we wanted to prevent that. So we came up with TPT School Access so that we could instead have your school purchase a subscription so that you don't have to use any of your own funds while still getting these wonderful resources from other teachers. So what you get with the subscription is immediate access to our library of resources. You're also going to get some more visibility so you can see what other teachers in your building are using in case you're new to Teachers Pay Teachers or resources, or you just do more collective planning. And most importantly and most excitingly, this is completely free for you to use. So your school has already covered the bill for you. Huge thank you to Scott, anyone else who was interested or who was a part of getting you all access. We're happy to have you. Any questions about school access before I move on? Remember, I cannot see the chat, so you will have to come off of mute if you have a question. All right, good deal. So as far as library goes, we do have a library of 4.9 million teacher-created resources that are available to you on School Access, and over 500,000 of those resources can also be shared as online interactive activities for your students. So that said another way, we have 4.9 million resources, all of which can be printed, but only over 500,000 of them can be actually sent to your students so that they could type on it, they could annotate on it, or complete it on a device of their own. As far as subject area goes, we do cover all subjects, pre-K through 12, academic and non. So, of course, all of our core tested subjects, but also subjects that are not necessarily tested, like social emotional learning, culturally responsive resources, and even some like behavior management resources as well. Even some really niche things like parent-teacher conferences, or if you were teaching about election day, things like that are available on our site as well. Now, I do like to point out that our library on School Access is not an exact copy of the library on the marketplace, and that's for two main reasons. The first reason is that teacher authors, the people who make our content, they're actually able to just opt in if they want to include their resources on both of our sites. So teacher author might choose to opt their materials out. It's completely their choice. And the second reason why we do differ from the marketplace is that our resources on School Access are going to be valued anywhere between $0 and $15. There are some resources on the marketplace that are priced above that $15 point. Just know that they won't appear for you on School Access, so you won't be able to access them here. Any questions about library? All righty, moving on. So how the subscription works is that your school purchases a number of resource licenses, and these resource licenses allow you to access different materials on our site. Not every single resource is going to require a resource license, and I'll show you the difference between the two when we hop into our demo. But just know that your school has purchased 175 resource licenses for your entire school to use. So that's shared among you all who are on your account. 175 resource licenses. Again, though, you still get way more than 175 resources because some of our resources do not require a resource license. You can kind of think of them as like a credit. And again, I'll show you how you're using it and when to know that you're using it and all that good stuff and how to avoid using them if you want to. Other than that, your subscription lasts for a full calendar year. So the last day of your current subscription is going to be September 13th, 2023. So a little bit of time from now, you'll continue to have access for a while here. So at this point, I'm just going to switch into my demo account so I can model for you how to search for resources and a couple of tips and tricks that I find helpful. When you're on your home page, a couple of things might stick out to you. First, we have your subscription details. So if you ever forget how many resource licenses you have or how long your subscription runs, you can find those details in the top right-hand corner here. You can also just begin to browse around these resources, and you might find as you're browsing some differences between the buttons that you would use to access a different resource. So just on the screen, I've got some blue buttons, some green buttons, and options for bundles, and all of these work a little bit differently. Main thing I think there is to remember are two different colors. Green means go. So if you ever come across a button that's green, that means that you do not have to use a resource license. Any of these are unlimited. You can have anything that has a green button next to it. You can just access it right off the bat. If you come across anything with a blue Access Now button, that's going to be when you would start using a resource license. So remember, your school has 175 total to use. Your school can get 175 resources that do require a resource license, or they have this blue button. The last option that you'll see here are bundles, and bundles work a little bit differently than they would work on the marketplace. They're actually all broken out into parts. So here our same rules apply. I see that there are two green buttons within this bundle, meaning I could go ahead and access those. I do not need a resource license, but if I wanted to access any of these resources with the blue Access Now button, then I would need to use up to 4 resource licenses to access all of these items, because there are 4 different component parts and they would all require their own resource license. Bundles are usually one of our top areas for questions. So do you all have any today? All right, great. So now we're just going to do a couple of different searches, and I'm going to access those two different resources differently. So first, we're going to search for a resource that does not require a resource license. We're specifically looking for these green buttons here. So when I'm ready to search for something, I can simply type whatever I'd like to find within my search bar up here. Maybe I am just looking for some math resources. Let's look for centers. And of course, I can search for anything that I need here. Now, if I type in math centers here, then I get over 700,000 results, which are quite a few. So we might want to filter those down first. If I am interested in first looking for resources that do not require a resource license, then I'm going to go ahead and click the filter for the Flex catalog. The Flex catalog does not require any resource licenses. It's about 8,000 resources large, and you have unlimited access to the Flex catalog. So you can have any and all of these. Just for Math Centers, I'm seeing over 1,000 results here that I can all have without using a resource license. I can continue to filter down these results. We do support a number of different formats. I would say this filter is only important if you're really specifically looking for a type of format for your students. So maybe you really specifically want a PowerPoint, that's all you're looking for, then I would filter for that. If you're filtering for any other kind of niche format like a Prezi or maybe even a Boom card, then I would definitely have on that filter. But if you're not too concerned about the file type, you're just looking to print it out for your students and you're not really concerned about the actual file that you're printing, then I would just keep that filter off. Then we can go ahead and filter by grades and by standards. We could also filter by subject here, but I've already typed in Math Centers, so I think my subject is pretty set. And here I've got all of my results. I've got 574 of them. Again, all of these are in the Flex catalog, so I do not need to use a resource license on them. I could have all 574 of these resources if I wanted. From here, I usually just like to take a quick glance at the number of ratings that each resource has. One of the best things about Teachers Pay Teachers is that these resources are being used all the time by teachers in the United States and in some cases across the world. So it can be really helpful to see how other teachers have used these resources and if they've liked them. I'm pretty interested in this resource because it has 165 ratings, 4 or 5 stars. So it seems to be something that teachers in general have liked. So I'm going to click on the resource itself and I can begin to learn a little bit more about it. I could click on this Black View Preview button, which is just going to give me a more enhanced view of the resource itself. So I see all that's included here. There's some activities, actual lesson plans, pre and post tests. This looks like a pretty comprehensive resource for me. If I keep scrolling, then I can learn more about this resource by reading the resource description. I can also see the standards that are tagged with this resource, the resource details itself, so anything about the physical resource, similar resources, and then lastly, those reviews. Again, I always like the reviews. Whether it's looking at a resource here or online shopping, I'm a big reviews lady. I always like to look at them. So at this point, I've seen everything that I can about this resource before actually just opening it in the viewer. I can also take a couple of other actions. I can recommend this to another colleague in my building. So I could do that just by selecting their name from a drop-down menu and hitting send. That's going to send them an email preview of the resource. You could also bookmark this resource for a later time, and you can always find those bookmarks by clicking on the drop-down menu and selecting bookmarks here. Or I can just go ahead and open this up in viewer. I just have access to this resource. Remember, no resource license required. I can just come in here, get this material, and immediately print it for my students if I'd like. This resource is a little bit larger. It's like 183 pages, I think, so it's taking a moment to load. Does anybody have any questions on accessing a Flex resource? Great. So if you're ready to print this resource for your students, then you would just click on the print button and print it as you would print anything else. If you're not familiar with our resources, then I will just let you know that most of them have a couple teacher-facing pages in the front. I know this one did include actual like lesson plans here. So all of these pages are really helpful for you, but they might not necessarily be something you want to share with your students. So I would just make sure before you do print that you've kind of taken a look at all of the pre-pages to make sure you're not giving those to your students unless you want to. I could also share this as a student link. Sharing this as a student link is just going to give whoever has the link access to the entire resource. So that does mean if there are any answer keys or teacher-facing pages, those would appear in this link as well. Something to be mindful of before you share. Wonderful. That resource was a great example because it was pretty large. It was 183 pages. So you are likely not going to be printing that out for your third graders all in one print. Maybe you're going to print it in sections. If you ever need to come back to a resource that you've accessed, you can just click on the drop-down menu by your name, select resources accessed, and then that's going to take you to everything that you've accessed in this current subscription. From here, you can continue printing. You can just go straight back to the resource. You can use that as many times as you'd like, as long as you have an active subscription with us. These resources will be yours to use. And then from here, you can also see the bookmarks as well. So that's accessing a Flex resource. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like to actually access a resource using a resource license. So this time, let's do literacy centers. From here, I can continue to filter down my resources. So I can also search for a grade level that I'd like to here. I can add my standards. I can look for subjects. And then I would have my search results. From here, I'm still interested in looking at my rating. So I see that there are a few pretty highly rated resources here that I might be interested in taking a look at. Let's see, this one's interesting to me. So I'll click on it. And it's all the same information. I can click the black view preview button. I can read the resource description and any reviews that have been left on this resource. And once I'm ready, I could then access the resource now. So this is where it gets a little bit different. With a Flex resource, you just click open in viewer and that gives you access to the full resource. You can begin to print. But with anything that requires a resource license, you're going to have a pop-up before you actually access the resource, just reminding you that you're going to use one resource license in order to activate the resource. So I can always click out of this pop-up if I don't want to use a resource license, but if I am certain, then I will click the blue button one more time, giving me access to the resource and just one less resource license for the school. Any questions there? Great. So from here, it's the same idea. I would just go ahead and open in viewer. That gives me access to the resource. I can print it. I can share it with the student link, do whatever I need to there. Next, I just want to show you some other parts of the website. So if you click on this drop-down menu by your name, you can come to school activity, and school activity is where you can just get a better understanding of how other teachers are using the subscription. So up here, you'll see your school administrators, and these are the administrators on the account. So they might not necessarily be like your principal or vice principal, but they will be whoever has admin access to the subscription. You can see just in general how the subscription is being used, how that breaks down by subject. And then probably the most interesting piece down here is the user activity section. So this is where I could actually click into another teacher's classroom to see what they've been using. Let's say my friend Sarah over here always has good resources, so I want to take a look at what she's been using. If I click on Sarah's name, then I'm able to see any of the resources that Sarah has used in this subscription. From here, I can, of course, ask Sarah if that's a resource that she would recommend me to use in my classroom. And if it is, then it might be something that I would like to access for myself. Now, our sharing policy here and on the marketplace is one resource per educator. So although Sarah has used this resource in her classroom, I would need to use a resource license in order to activate it in mine, just so that we can follow the rules of our sharing policy. Any questions about that? Great. So you might have also seen this option to add resources to collections. Collections are a way to organize the materials that you have either accessed or bookmarked within School Access. You can find it in the same area where you can see your resources accessed in any of your bookmarks. And they're pretty simple to create. I can create a new collection simply by clicking on the screen button and then titling the collection whatever I'd like. I have two collections here. One is for my counting resources. The other is for my argumentative essay resources. And I can add resources to a collection simply by going to my resources accessed or my bookmarks, clicking on add to collections, and then adding to whichever collection best applies to that resource. Collections are also shareable. So if you do any common planning with anyone, maybe you work closely with another teacher in the building, you can share the collection. That's going to show another teacher what you have in that collection itself. But again, if it is something that requires a resource license, that teacher would need to use another resource license in order to activate the material. As far as general setup goes, that's really it. I'll pause here for any last questions if we have them. Going once. Going twice. All right, great. If you happen to come up with any questions later as you're actually using the subscription, then you can always come down here to this contact us option. And this is going to be where you can send us a note. We will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, resolving the issue or responding to you in whatever way feels appropriate. And it's usually much faster than that. That's just the longest that it might take for us to get back to you. And we also accept feedback here. So if there's anything that you would love to see improved or just isn't working quite well for you, you can always come here, give us your feedback, and we will get back to you as soon as we can after having filed it away. Wondering if I got a question in the chat asking if I could show the website that I showed at the beginning. Definitely. I'll just show us right here in my browser though. So we are tptschoolaccess.com. That is where you'll find everything associated with your school subscription. So Teachers Pay Teachers is one website, TPT School Access is another website. Definitely keep the two separate because you won't be able to use resource licenses on TPT. You'll just have to use your own money. Any other questions? Yeah, of course. All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Reach out to us if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoy School Access. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.